Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching COVID-19 India Fights Back. I'm Frank Razam Pereira. Well, the Indian Council of Medical Research study that found no benefits of convalescent plasma therapy for COVID-19 patients was published in the peer-reviewed British Medical Journal on Thursday. The study concluded that the therapy did not prevent progression to severe disease among COVID-19 patients. The finding of the study has been cited as one of the reasons the National Task Force is considering removing plasma therapy from the standard COVID-19 treatment protocol. However, the PGI is of the opinion that the therapy could still be of use for resolution of COVID symptoms and should not be taken off the protocol completely. Meanwhile, there's discussion around whether ivermectin, an anti-parasitic drug being touted as a possible treatment for the coronavirus infection, should be included in the Health Ministry's clinical management protocol for COVID-19. In this edition of COVID-19 India Fights Back, we will analyze why there isn't a standard protocol for treatment. Joining me on the program today are Dr. Madhavi Irike, Scientist D, ICMR New Delhi, Dr. Rohit Sareen, Member, National Task Force for COVID-19, and Dr. Dhruva Chaudhary, Senior Professor and Head, Pulmonary and Critical Care Medicine, Pandit Bhagwat Dayal Sharma, Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Rohtak. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of India Fights Back. All right, Dr. Madhavi, let me start the program with you first. I mean, when you look at COVID-19, when you look at the treatment protocols, when you look at the kind of treatment that is being administered, there is no standardization really, and it seems to be evolving with every passing day or with, every now and then. Why is that so?
See, if you see this virus, it is a novel virus and it is a new disease. No one knows what exactly, what drug will act in this. So initially, with little evidence, some have been recommended for use of drugs, and then later evidence has been generated. So in India, we have really very good protocol, and that is developed based on the available evidence. If you see our standard protocol, based on the disease severity, it has been classified mild, moderate, and severe cases. And based on the level of evidence, only the drug part has been recommended. And in this protocol, whatever the recommended drugs, it is based on the level of evidence given by the high-level expert committee. Okay, reviewed by the high-level expert committee. And some drugs, even though the level of evidence is low, they have been included as investigational therapies. So they will be reviewing they will be reviewing on the evidence whenever it is available. So these investigational therapies which were included in the protocol are convalescent plasma, tocilizumab, and remdesivir. So recently ICMR finished that convalescent plasma study, PLACID trial, where it showed it has not been much beneficial effect in case of moderate cases. So this has been reviewed along with other published articles on the convalescent plasma, and then later this has been given recommendation to the DGHS that it is not beneficial. So as the review, as the evidence is coming up, so whatever the evidence is available and generated, based on that only these drugs are recommended.
Okay, so let's break this up now into moderate cases, and severe cases of COVID-19. Dr. Rohit, if you look at the severe cases of COVID-19, what is the general procedure that is followed? What is the treatment protocol that is followed? And how or when is a patient categorized in the extreme category?
Okay, so I think the factor which really determines how to categorize this group into mild, moderate, severe, we take a look at the respiratory rate, and also we take a look at the saturation, the oxygen saturation in the blood. It can be measured very easily by a device which we call as the pulse oximeter. And based on this, and of course related to any other comorbid situation like the age of a patient, if it is more than 60, or any other disease like diabetes or respiratory illnesses like asthma, COPD, or cardiac conditions, or even renal disease and liver disease. Whenever you see individual is suffering from this, then it moves on from the moderate to the severe category once the saturation recorded is less than 90. Ideally speaking, this saturation should be 100, but in most individuals, it may vary from 95 to 100. Once it falls below 94, we say it is moderate, and once it falls below 90, we consider it as severe disease. So that is as far as the classification goes. And now within the severe category, we have two broader groups. So one which will require critical care intervention, and the other which can be managed in the ICU setup with other interventions, not necessarily a ventilator. Even in a non-invasive way, we can take care of this group of patients. As far as the management is concerned, I would say, as Madhvi has rightly said, that there are certain things within the protocol which are very clear cut, and amongst those is that, well, number one is you have to hospitalize this group of patients. Secondly, it is that this group of patients will require oxygen, so oxygen has to be given, and there are different ways of oxygen delivery. If the saturation is very low, then we talk of high flow nasal oxygen, HFNO, and things like that. So oxygen is very clear cut. Then there is the role of corticosteroids, which is another medication, which is primarily an anti-inflammatory drug. And that is the drug which takes care of, the body's host response to this particular virus, so that it should not be damaging to the extent that it kills the patient. So therefore, we use corticosteroids in that group. And then there are these anticoagulants. You see, the certain effects are there as a consequence of the virus, and certain effects are there as a consequence of the impact on other systems. So the coagulation in the blood gets affected, and there is some clotting which may happen. And hence, these patients are also given anticoagulants. There are defined dosages and all for all of them. As far as experimental drugs are concerned, well, we have reviewed evidences as they come from time to time. In fact, the National Task Force, I happen to be a member of that, we discuss all these evidences on a regular basis, and whatever are the national protocols, that we try to have it more evidence-based rather than empiric.
Right.
To start with, certain drugs, as we call them experimental drugs, so we keep them in a box. Clinicians are using these drugs like tocilizumab and ivermectin also, along with doxycycline, is being used. This convalescent plasma is also being used. But whether the evidence is strong enough, well, when we started on this journey, we really knew nothing. And we only relied on whatever knowledge we had about other viruses, and tried to make a similarity and talk of interventions. But gradually, certain evidences emerged as to the role. And there are many trials. I mean, like Placid talked more on convalescent plasma. Then there is a Solidarity trial which talks on certain things, even hydroxychloroquine and remdesivir and all. These other drugs which are there, which were considered at one time to be very promising, but subsequently we find that it is really not so. So,
Right.
This is something which I'd like to say on this issue.
Okay, absolutely. We'll talk about a lot more, of course, as far as this particular issue is concerned. But Dr. Dhruva, let me bring you into the picture now. So, like we've seen, the treatment protocols or the medicines that are given to COVID-19 patients change over the last 6 to 8 months. What's to say that in the next 3 to 6 months also a lot more is going to change, because we are learning something new on a daily basis. So things as we know it might be very different 1 month from now.
Yeah, that's true. I think Dr. Madhvi and Dr. Sareen have been very lucid and eloquent what they're talking about. He's very right. When I look at Dr. Sareen, that when we started up, we didn't know anything. We just went it head on, and we were a little fortunate that in India it came a little later. But nevertheless, whatever we advocated, whatever has been talked, discussed, everything has gone topsy turvy and has been evidence-based medicine era has not been coming out to be what it had promised to be. That's the truth. But having said so, I think what is extremely important is what we are trying to do. We are putting Jack in a box and think that everything will fix into and give it. It will be effective in every patient. We forgot two things. First and foremost is that yes, virus is infecting, but it's how the immune responses are going to react. You, me, everybody within even the house have got a different immune responses within a family. So I think that is one a very important key factor. And if you see the data today, why out of 180 to 85 people have absolutely nothing to, they don't suffer from any serious consequences. Why only 10 to 15% of the people who are sick, they actually are having this problem? And what we have started understanding more and more now is that primarily it is the host immune responses which are dictating. That is why what Dr. Sareen said is that steroids are very effective in this, because now we know it's an immunogenic, quote unquote, because the problem here we are seeing is in second week of illness, not in the first week of illness. Whereas in influenza, we were seeing in the first week of illness, not in the second week of illness. So once you start getting antibodies and other things, you're having it. One, you are very right. We can expect further changes coming up over a period of time, which will happen. Like hydroxychloroquine, I personally feel he's a member of health task force, should be out completely now, because it's a dynamic, evolving situation. Similarly, like ivermectin, doxycycline, there's no evidence. In vitro, evidences are there. In silico, where you do it a computerized based system, probably there is an evidence. But on the real ground field, we do not have any data to suggest. And I know from my colleagues in All India Institute of Medical Sciences is that they did a study on ivermectin in the patients who were mild disease. They didn't find anything. Everybody is claiming it because 80-85% will recover in any way. I think we need a hard data, as we have done it in a Placid trial. But again, they are showing 20% reduction in the log of the values of your virus, because there it is being primarily used an antiviral. I think it's like a passive immunization. It's the same principle working up as an antiviral rather than as immune modulation. I think we need to understand that, and everything is boiling down to two things: how quickly you detect the complication and how early you respond to that. I think that's what it is there. And what you said, I absolutely agree, things may change over a period of a time.
Absolutely. Okay, all right. Taking the discussion forward now, Dr. Madhavi, so what is the status as far as plasma therapy is concerned? I mean, is it something that we should continue? Should we not continue? What's the verdict on that?
Based on the level of evidence reviewed by the high-level expert committee, this is not recommended for moderate cases. It has not. It has shown no beneficial effect in case of moderate cases. And some studies are coming up that use of this convalescent plasma in early stage of the disease might be useful, but still the studies are on way. So whatever the data available in the moderate cases, there is not much beneficial effect.
Okay, and what about severe cases? Is there any study or anything to say anything about severe cases?
That data has not been reviewed. It is still have to be reviewed.
Okay, it's still work in progress, and it's still a learn as you go process really as far as that is concerned. All right, so Dr. Rohit, let me bring you into the picture now. So we've spoken about how, the immunity is at the center of everything really as far as fighting COVID-19 is concerned. So that having been said, the immunity of different people can be different. So should we treat individual patients differently as well, or should we have like a standard protocol considering that someone falls into a particular bracket?
I would say, technically speaking, every patient is different. There are certain things which can be generalized. Like I said, oxygen therapy, that could be generalized. Like I said, steroids, that could be generalized. We have talked of anticoagulants, that could be generalized. But then the patient, factors which will determine what additional intervention is required. And this may vary from individual to individual, and the response also to your therapy will vary from individual to individual. So the therapy may have to be tailored to that individual. Some things are generalizable, but everything is not generalizable, and we need to see in a specific instance what needs to be done and what are the other comorbid situations that the individual is having. For example, if there is a diabetic patient, then obviously you'll have to treat his diabetes, and his illness may in fact become more severe. And same is true for a case of COPD, bronchial asthma. I mean, these individuals also, they will have certain other issues coming up which will need to be addressed. They may land up into respiratory failure much earlier, and therefore the intervention of ventilation may happen much earlier than in others. So, the interventions always, I mean, that is for any disease, I will say, and more so for, dual diseases and COVID with something, there it definitely becomes individualized. But yes, certain things are also there which can be applied across the board. And that I think the guideline also very clearly states that.
So till that time, Dr. Rohit, that we get a complete cure, a treatment, or a vaccine for COVID-19, what is the status of drugs like hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir, and other such drugs that we've seen come up, in the recent past? Terms that we found very difficult as common men, to pronounce and to come to terms with. But still, we have done that. So, are they still valid, still relevant? What's the status really?
Well, you see, if I put it that when we started on, the number of drugs in the experimental box were pretty high. The number was large. But as evidence is coming up day and day, I find that we are gradually, removing things out of the box. And even hydroxychloroquine, its use as far as treatment is concerned is no longer there, and we've removed it from the management protocol. As Dhruv has rightly said, that it is high time we should remove it. Well, Dhruv, you'll be happy to learn that we have removed hydroxychloroquine from the treatment. However, its use in prophylaxis, that still is, debatable, because studies are still not very clear on that. There are some reports which are coming that it is still useful, but it is otherwise, as far as hydroxychloroquine, certain things are clear, certain things are not clear. As far as ivermectin, in our last meeting, even ivermectin was discussed in detail, and it does not find a place in the treatment protocol. Though, as I said, in Mumbai, Maharashtra area, a lot of doctors are using ivermectin and doxycycline, and in other neighboring countries like Bangladesh, they did a lot of interventions with this combination, and they found successful results. But when we reviewed all the data which is available on this, we found that, okay, this is again not going to be very useful. Regarding remdesivir, well, the recently concluded trial by WHO, in which India was also participating, and there were many other countries globally which participated, and drugs which were compared included remdesivir also and hydroxychloroquine also. I mean, all of them ultimately in that trial also, solidarity trial, it was found that it carries no meaning and is not of use. So, these are certain things. But you will find that across the board, we can't straight away say no also to certain situations. Sure. Because individuals have benefited from remdesivir. In fact, now US FDA has approved this drug as a treatment for, earlier it was approved as emergency care, but now it is approved as treatment. So what I'm just trying to indicate to you is that everything is not black and white. There are gray areas in between. And till clarity emerges, we can just be uh, uh,
I think, sir,
national
if
guidelines
you,
can focus on certain things. That is all I can
Absolutely.
say.
Focus
if you
focus
permit
on
me,
what we
Be
if you
know.
very
permit me,
dogmatic about.
if you permit me, I will
Yeah,
add to it what
go
Dr.
ahead.
Serene
Dr.
is
Dhruva,
saying.
the floor is yours. I saw you putting up your
I
hand.
think,
Please go ahead.
yeah,
The
yeah.
floor is yours.
Yeah, please. You see, when you're talking in terms of solidarity trial, when you're looking at recovery trial and so forth, it is very important when the drugs were used. Average time period of these drugs used has been 10 days to 12 days. Already when your immune mechanism started functioning, it's an interesting blog which we have been already feeling about it, that these drugs, if have to be effective, they have to be effective in first 1 week. The challenge is to find out and pick up which patient is going to land up in a trouble. Now that's the challenge, and it has been seen now. And myself itself, people with the one comorbid with two comorbidities, we are using it now much earlier on fourth or fifth day when we start finding that inflammatory parameters are high rather than the late, because that is where they will be maximum antivirals are going to be effective. But once we have unleashed the forces of immunity, it will be very difficult to control them with antiviral. That is why you will see they're having an impact on a lesser duration, but no impact on mortality and morbidity. I think it is very important when you are looking at the trials, how they have been formed, where they are being used, and at the same thing is happening with our Placid trial also now. You look at it, 70% of the patients who were given, nobody knew at that point of time, had antibodies already there. Therefore, when you will give it, will it be effective? Now, the question that is why a lot of people are talking about convalescent plasma to be used early as an antiviral, and that is enough data on different disease processes. If I put it up, that from passive immunity, immunization, which we do with like you are doing it in rabies, you are doing it in chickenpox, you are doing it in other diseases, you are extrapolating, and now when you do it before symptom, it becomes passive immunization. Once you get a symptom and you try to do it, it becomes a therapeutics. I think there is a very fine thin line which is there. But the key again is, as I was discussing with Dr. Serene and quite a few other friends of mine in task forces, crux is when to pick up, how to pick up, and how quickly you act. But once you have unleashing of forces, therefore, when you start treating it, you need to look at it, what this disease is causing and anticipating, and then acting. And yes,
Absolutely.
protocol, I'm all for favor because it leads to uniformity. And because if you do not have a protocol, it leads to mayhem and chaos.
True.
Therefore, some amount of protocol is required. And what we are finding is one is a national protocol and guideline. Guideline is to guide, and protocols are there to help you taking decisions. And
Sure.
then you customize and individualize to as per need. But unfortunately, at certain level, there have been extreme disparity between the national task force and like UP government has given ivermectin, your West Bengal government has given it because there has been immense pressure on the governments to deliver. But as a
Right.
scientist, when we start looking at data, is not there.
I
Okay.
wanted to add
Points
some
taken.
more
Yes.
data.
Yes. Time to get closing comments from all my panelists with the best way forward. Please be brief because I've got limited time on the program. Go ahead, Dr. Madhavi. You wanted to add in? The floor is yours.
Yeah, yes. Whatever the drugs recommended, initially they have shown some positive effect, and later, when they have conducted in a proper designed studies like randomized control trials, if you take the level of evidence, highest level is systematic review and meta-analysis. Next to is RCTs. Then observational studies will come. So, if you consider the level of evidence, the highest level RCT showed no beneficial effect, but observational studies showed positive effect. So, considering the level of evidence, you have to take the RCT data and then take a decision on use of either ivermectin or remdesivir or tocilizumab. If you take the remdesivir, WHO solidarity trials showed that it has not benefit. It has no beneficial effects. But US FDA has given approval on this drug, and NIH says that the final report says that it is having a beneficial effect. Whereas tocilizumab, again, prospective studies, retrospective studies shows beneficial effect, but RCTs showed there are no beneficial effect. So, considering the level of evidence, you have to take the decision on the drugs for recommendation of in COVID-19 management.
Absolutely. All right, Dr. Rohit, best way forward, very briefly.
Well, I think it's very clear that there are many imponderables in terms of the treatment interventions, but certain things are very clear. That is, use a mask. It is wash our hands properly, more frequently, and to keep safe distance. And these things become all the more important when we are going through a period which is full of festivals, which is full of enjoyment, and there's a likelihood that you see one can become casual and careless. Sometimes we feel even amongst professionals this fatigue sets in. So friends, I think the way forward continues to be what we have been doing earlier, and that is the mask, good hand hygiene, and social distancing. That is it. Thank you.
All right. And Dr. Dhruva, very quick closing concluding remark from you.
You see, I know that's a very catchy slogan today, is that mask is your vaccine, no doubt about it. I think we understand much better this disease than 6 months ago, 9 months ago. What is very important is to clearly differentiate knowledge from information, and you must have the sagacity and wisdom to use that knowledge properly. I think that is very important. And secondly, the drugs are there, definitely there. Nothing is going to work 100%. It has never worked. We are thinking that everybody will give us 100% answer. Question is how you are using your weapons which are available with you. Whatever the formulary which is available with you, use it judiciously. You must use it, but and try to customize or individualize as per the need at the basic protocol. I think that is what is required till we have a good vaccine, which is going to, I expect to be shortly, because I'm participating in one of the trials and the results are very encouraging. I think that's the way to look forward. But my dear friends, I will re-emphasize what Dr. Serena said. With festival season coming, air pollution in the north in particular coming up, don't be complacent. Be careful.
Absolutely. Don't be complacent is a loud and clear message from all the panelists. With that, I'll call it a wrap on this telecast. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Before I leave you, I'd like to leave you with an appeal as well. Rajya Sabha TV appeals to all its viewers to wash your hands regularly, wear a mask, wash your face as well, and together we can fight this virus. Remember to follow all the protocols and all the guidelines, and we shall be safe.